History is littered with examples of two elite warrior classes battling out for the top spot in the region. Well, today, we are going to take a look at one such conflict in Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome to the History Channel. Both the Afghans and Sikhs are considered to be warrior races. We all know that war is always moments away when you place such a hot-blooded population in close proximity, and well, as expected, both nations went to war multiple times, starting from around 1751 to 1837. During that time, the Afghans were ruled by the Durrani Empire, while the Sikhs were led by Ranjit Singh. Let us take a look at the events of these wars. Despite the Sikh holocaust of 1746, a series of events where the failing Mughal Empire set out to murder any Sikh individual within their borders, the Sikh Confederacy essentially gained independence from the Mughal Empire in 1716 and flourished at its expense in the following decades. The Mughals were struck a serious blow when the Afsharid Persian monarch Nader Shah invaded the Mughal Empire in 1738 to 1740. But following Nader's death in 1747, the Durrani Empire, approximately spanning modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan, proclaimed independence from Persia. And so, the battleground was set between the two empires, and 4 years later, they would come face to face with each other. In preparation for an invasion of Kashmir, Ranjit Singh raided the hill principalities of Bimber, Rajouri, and Kulu in 1811 to 1812. Fateh Khan, the vizier of Kabul, crossed the Indus River in late 1812 on Mahmud Shah Durrani's instructions to conquer Kashmir and rescue Shuja Shah Durrani from his renegade vizier Ata Muhammad Khan. Fateh Khan consented to a combined invasion of Kashmir in an 1812 conversation with Ranjit Singh. He couldn't conquer Kashmir if the Sikh Empire stood in his way, so he agreed to give a share of the treasury to a tiny Sikh force led by Dewan Muqam Chand. Both assaults began in Jhelum, but Fateh Khan took advantage of a thick blizzard to double march his seasoned mountain men into the Pir Panjal range. Dewan Muqam Chand Nayar, on the other hand, offered the Rajouri Raja, king, a large piece of land if he could find a way through the range that would allow the Sikhs to reach the valley of Kashmir at the same time as the Afghan troops, and was able to have a small force present at the captures of Hari Parbat, and was able to have a small force present at the captures of Hari Parbat and Shergar under the command of Jodh Singh Khalsia and Nihal Singh Atari. Ata Muhammad Khan, the vizier of Kashmir, had shown little resistance to either force, but Fateh Khan refused to share the gains. Out of dread of being imprisoned in Kabul, Shuja Shah Durrani preferred to be accompanied by Dewan Muqam Chand to Lahore, the Sikh Empire's capital. Ranjit Singh felt enraged by Fateh Khan's unwillingness to share booty and began discussions with Jahandad Khan, the renegade governor of Attock and brother of Kashmir's newly overthrown Ata Muhammad Khan, to take possession of the fort at Attock. Daya Singh, a Sardar with a small detachment of troops in the region, acquired possession of Fort Attock with 3,510 mounds of grain, 439 rounds of cannon shot, 70 cannon and small mortars, and 255 mounds of rock salt when Jahandad Khan accepted his Jagir. Hari Singh Nalwa arrived with Dewan Devi Das and a cavalry force to assist the garrison later. Accusing Ranjit Singh of betrayal, Fateh Khan led a force of 15,000 horsemen from Kashmir to Attock Fort in April 1813. In response, Ranjit Singh dispatched Dewan Muqam Chand and Karam Chand Chahal from Burhan with a troop of cavalry, artillery, and an infantry regiment to confront the Afghans. Although both troops participated in multiple skirmishes and suffered losses, Dewan Muqam Chand Nayar tented 13 kilometers from the Afghan camp, afraid to risk a decisive fight. The Afghan supplies were depleted on July 12, 1812, so Dewan Muqam Chand Nayar marched 8 kilometers from Atak to Haidaru on the banks of the Indus River to fight. Dewan Muqam Chand Nayar divided the cavalry into 4 divisions on July 13, 1812, handing one division to Hari Singh Nalwa and taking leadership of the other. A single infantry battalion constructed an infantry square to cover the artillery, which was commanded by Gus Khan. The Afghans took up positions opposite the Sikhs, with Dost Muhammad Khan commanding a section of their cavalry. Fateh Khan began the engagement by sending his Pathans on a cavalry attack, which the Sikh artillery stopped with heavy fire. The Afghans rallied around Dost Muhammad Khan, who led the Ghazis on another horse attack, destroying one wing of the Sikh army and capturing some weaponry. Dewan Muqam Chand led a cavalry attack on a war elephant that resisted the Afghans at all places and defeated the surviving Afghan forces when it thought the Sikhs had lost the fight. Fearing that his brother Dost Muhammad Khan had been killed, Fateh Khan fled to Kabul, where the Sikhs took the Afghan camp, including the missing artillery pieces. During this time, the Durrani Empire also had to fend off an attack from the Persians. The next battle of the Afghan Sikh War was fought near Multan. The city had previously been assaulted by the Sikh Empire on several occasions, the most recent being in 1810. Previously, the Sikh army would overcome the opposing force and conquer the city, only for Multan's governor Muzaffar Khan Sadozai to retire with the Multan fort. During earlier sieges, the Sikhs had settled for big one-time tribute payments, but after the onslaught in 1810, Multan agreed to pay an annual tribute. Muzaffar Khan had previously controlled the Durrani province of Multan independently of the Kabul emperor's heirs, Ahmad Shah Abdali. No Durrani force could relieve him, since the kin of Fateh Khan were embroiled in a power war with Mahmud Shah. Ranjit Singh ordered the Sikh army to assemble on the Sikh Empire's southwest boundary in early 1818 to prepare for an attack against Multan. By January 1818, the Sikh Empire had developed a vast supply line stretching from Lahore, the capital, to Multan, with goods ferried across the Jhelum, Chenab, and Ravi rivers by boat. Rani Raj Kaur was in charge of ensuring that a regular supply of food, horses, and ammunition were sent to Kot Kamalia, a town halfway between Multan and Lahore. The Sikh force began their attack in early January by capturing Nawab Muzaffar Khan's forts of Muzaffargarh and Kishangarh. Muzaffar refused to pay the huge tribute he owed and surrendered the fort when the Sikh force, led by Karak Singh, arrived in Multan in February. The Sikh soldiers won a battle near the city, but Muzaffar escaped within the fort before they could capture him. The Sikh army requested more artillery, and Ranjit Singh responded by sending the Zamzama and other huge artillery pieces, which began firing on the fort's walls. Sadhu Singh and a small group of other Akalis stormed the fort walls in early June and uncovered a breach. The greater Sikh force was notified and entered the fort via the breach as they raced in to attack the unprepared garrison. Muzaffar and his sons tried to defend the fort, but they were killed in the conflict. This battle ended much of the Durrani Empire's influence in the Peshawar region. The next conflict between the two empires took place in Kashmir, or rather, a region there called Shopian. At Gujarat and Wazirabad, the Sikh Expeditionary Army erected two armories for the campaign. Ranjit Singh dispatched 30,000 warriors from Lahore to the hill kingdoms at the foot of the Pir Panjal Range on April 20. Monsieur Diwan Chand led the advance force, Karak Singh led the rear guard, and Ranjit Singh led a reserve of 10,000 warriors defending the supply train. The Expeditionary Army marched to Bimber to resupply and capture a local Hakim's fort without opposition. On May 1, both Sikh army columns arrived at Rajouri when its ruler Raja Agarullah Khan revolted and forced a fight. Hari Singh Nalwa took leadership of a troop and crushed his opponent's army, which surrendered unconditionally after losing the majority of its men and supplies. In exchange for aid in traversing the Behram Pass, his brother Raja Rahimullah Khan was made Raja of Rajouri. The Durrani appointed Faudar, responsible for protecting the Behram Pass, escaped to Srinagar once the Sikh army arrived. The Kotwals of Poonch and Shopian, Mir Muhammad Khan and Muhammad Ali, attempted to defend the Daki Deo and Maja passes but were defeated. Karak Singh now advanced to Surdi Thana. Meanwhile, Monsieur Diwan Chand split his force into 3 divisions and ordered them to cross the Pir Panjal Range through different passes. A Durrani army led by Jabbar Khan prevented the Sikh army from marching through Shopian and into Srinagar. The Durrani forces had fortified themselves in anticipation of the Sikh artillery attack and had brought powerful weaponry, which the Sikhs were unprepared for because they had only brought light guns. Monsieur Diwan Chand launched the battle with an artillery barrage and several infantry and horse attacks once his artillery was in range. Until the Sikhs began bringing their weapons forward, the Durrani army was able to fight off the Sikh efforts to attack their lines. When Monsieur Diwan Chand was directing the movement of cannons on the Sikh left flank, Jabbar Khan perceived an opening and led the Durrani right flank, storming Monsieur Diwan Chand's artillery post, capturing 2 guns, and throwing the Sikh left flank into disarray. The Durrani army attacking the Sikh left flank, on the other hand, was exposed from the left, and Akali Pul Singh, commander of the Sikh right flank, roused his soldiers and led his command in a charge across the battlefield to the artillery position. Sections of the Durrani force began to retreat after the close quarters combat, in which both sides used swords and daggers, and Jabbar Khan was injured while fleeing the battlefield. Following the battle, Jabbar Khan and his forces retreated from the battlefield, and the Sikh army marched into Srinagar and captured the city without any bloodshed. This battle marked the Sikh conquest of Kashmir. Ranjit Singh launched an offensive against the Durranis in 1818, defeating the Kabul vizier and Muhammad Azam Khan Barakzai. He advanced as far as Peshawar, where the Durrani governor and Azam Khan's brother, Yar Muhammad Khan, recognized his control and paid tribute as a vassal. Angered by his defeat, Azam Khan once again took over Peshawar in 1822 and hurried toward Nowshera, where Muhammad Zaman had established a stronghold. In response, Ranjit Singh set out with his own army. As the two armies marshaled, the river Indus stood between them, and the upcoming battle looked to favor the Durranis, as numbers were significantly higher. Despite the difficulties, Ranjit Singh's soldiers managed to cross the Indus under heavy fire. The Lashkar subsequently retreated to Pir Sabak Hill, concentrating their forces in the hopes of gaining backup from the Durrani army and artillery under Azim Khan. For unclear reasons, Azim Khan did not immediately cross the Kabul River to join the tribesmen. When Ranjit Singh realized the situation, he focused his artillery and troops on the Lashkar and left a small force under the command of General Ventura to prevent Azim Khan from crossing. The tribal Lashkar and the Sikh Khalsa army then engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat. However, Azim Khan withdrew his army, and the tribesmen that were left soon gave up and dispersed in disarray. Following the victory, Ranjit Singh's forces rushed to Peshawar and captured the city, reducing it to ruins. He then moved to secure the Khyber Pass so that no Durrani reinforcements could threaten them again. The fifth and most important fight of the Afghan Sikh Wars was the Battle of Jamrud. Due to the battles with Persia, Afghans had been losing land to the Sikhs in recent years, and their area had shrunk with the loss of the Punjab region, Multan, Kashmir, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The fall of Peshawar was the most significant, since the region's residents comprised fellow Pashtuns, and the city was regarded as Afghanistan's second capital. Thus, they set out to recapture it. The Sikh army was at Lahore in 1837 for the wedding of Kanwar Nau Nihal Singh, Maharaja Ranjit Singh's grandson. Dost Muhammad Khan, the Emir of Afghanistan, rushed with his army to drive the Sikhs out of Peshawar, accompanied by 5 of his sons. Sardar Hari Singh Nalwa, a Sikh commander, was slain in the conflict. Many eyewitnesses reported that before he died, Nalwa ordered his dead body to be hung outside the fort, preventing the Afghans from invading since they thought Nalwa was still alive. Many historians dispute the outcome of this battle, but one fact remains clear, that this was the final battle between the Sikhs and the Afghans. So that was all the time we had today, folks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and to hit the bell icon to remain updated about all our future videos. See you all next time.